You have an idea. You want to tell it to the world, but you don't know where to start. That's where Anchor comes in. They have the tools for you to edit, produce, and record your idea right from your phone or computer. It's the easiest way to reach and grow your audience. They publish for you to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all major platforms. And to top it all off, they match you with advertisers so you can earn from your passion and your wonderful idea. So tell me, what are you waiting for? Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started and follow your dream. You're listening to Disruptive Adventism, a podcast about community, conversation, and conflict, where your ideas, traditions, and practices can be analyzed and changed. My name is Jose Briones, and I invite you to listen, to learn, and to live a life of purpose and disruption. It is time for another episode of Disruptive Adventism, everyone. We really appreciate that you're listening. Today, our topic is a little bit different. It's kind of like integrating the gospel, integrating health, and kind of putting them together in order to bring more meaningful results to people. And we have invited Ester Lopez to be with us, and she will be speaking on this topic and some of her experiences that kind of led her to integrating these very two essential parts of Jesus' ministry for the sake of others. Esther, how's it going?
It's going good, Jose. How are you?
I'm doing very well. I'm really excited to have you here. And well, I really hope that we get this topic and we really get going and, talking how to integrate, I think is very important. Now, before we start, we always like to get to know our guests. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I'm from Southern California, born and raised in the LA County. Pomona is where I was raised. I'm actually a pastor's kid, so I pretty much was always in church growing up. But my experience with Jesus didn't really become real for me until maybe I was 10, actually. It's where I really realized I wanted to make a full-blown decision. And ever since then, God has really been just guiding me through a lot of learning, training, and just coming to see who He made me to be and how I can use my talents for Him.
So how did you get started with this ministry, kind of like integration? What led you here? Share your journey a little bit.
Okay, well, first of all, my dad and mom were already into like the natural alternative stuff since we were kids. So whenever I would get sick, we never used drugs. I don't remember going to the emergency room for a fever. They would do hydrotherapy. They would do herbs. They would give us garlic, charcoal, just kind of like simple stuff. And so when I got to college, and I always knew I had a passion for the medical stuff, but when I got to college, I was sure I was going to go into the naturopathic medicine line. Within about 2 years, though, I was starting to lose my faith, and I really thought I need to make sure I'm grounded before I go to one of these places where they're not Adventist, they have all these weird alternative stuff in there. And so I thought, well, I'll just go somewhere where I can learn God's way, right? Like an Adventist place. I didn't know where to go, but my dad had mentioned all these self-supporting schools. So I ended up going to Wildwood, which is a good place to learn like the health message and things like that and see people like getting healed and diseases being reversed. And so that actually changed my course because I never went back to college. I ended up staying with Wildwood, working overseas with Wildwood, teaching people, and I found out I love to teach. I found out I love just bringing truth to people. I loved how my body felt by just applying the principles of health. So it really made a big change for me once I experienced that, and I just wanted to keep doing it. And I thought, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. I'm going to keep teaching people. I'm going to, live in Africa for like 3 years. The problem is I got sick when I was in Africa. So I ended up coming back to the United States. I got malaria, and that led to me finally making the decision, okay, well, I should probably go to a Bible college too before I continue my path and whatever it is God's calling me now. Because now I was open to whatever it was God wanted me to do.
So during your time studying and kind of like, understanding more like the natural remedies or like, health as a whole, you also felt the need to go and kind of go to scriptures and like maybe interact a little bit more with the teachings of the scriptures? Is that what I'm hearing? Like, you said that you kind of lost your faith. You wanted to be grounded. You went to Wildwood. But was that complete? I mean, you got most of your training in health at Wildwood.
Right.
Maybe not theological training or, just religious training, not necessarily having to go to a theological full program.
Right. Yeah, Wildwood was good with the health. They also taught us a lot of spirit of prophecy because, that's where health message comes from. But I didn't feel like I was getting really strong, grounded, like I can defend my faith, biblical stuff. I actually was always a skeptic as a kid, and I'm a thinker. I consider myself an intellectual. Like I don't just follow what everybody says. I have a million questions. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to study more, because I felt like I met people who would ask me questions and I didn't know what to say. And I was like, well, maybe they're right. Like maybe we're wrong, but I just hadn't really studied in depth.
So what do you do then?
What did I do? Well, it was a struggle because my recovery took a long time. But eventually I just started praying, God, whatever it is that you want me to do next, show me. I went to an Army Bible camp and they made an appeal for Bible working. And I thought maybe that's what I need to do. I need to go to Bible school. I told God, I don't have money. I don't know how this is going to happen, but I just want to enroll myself in your school, your Bible school, whatever it is that you want me to do. And God connected me to people just at my home church who were doing Bible work. So we started going out into the streets, talking to people. I started visiting people in their homes and just kind of talking about God, starting little Bible studies by myself, without having gone to a Bible college. And then soon enough, I got an invitation to go canvas. And I was very against that.
Why so?
Well, because I had canvassed already when I was in high school. I was 17 and it was really hard and I didn't really like it. I didn't really like the environment. So I thought I'll never go do one of those again, But I really could tell I kept on asking God, okay, put me where I'll be in the center of your will. Just that. And I would pray it, and I kept on getting invitations to canvas. I was like, okay, but not that, anything but that. But that's what it ended up being. So I went canvassing, and the canvassing program recruits for the Bible college. And I said, please, not that school. I never wanted to go to that school because it's long. It's 2 years. I could have just gone to a shorter school, maybe 3 months, get it done and move on, But God was leading me to the 2-year, and I was so upset. But it ended up being a huge blessing because we got a lot of mentorship, a lot of time in the community. And I think that's where my passion is, to be in the community, in people's homes, getting to know their stories, helping them with what's really happening, not just teaching them concepts, but giving them a real live action, example of what God is like.
So the canvassing work, and canvassing is, of course, going door to door and maybe, telling people, hey, buy this book or get interested in this series for health or maybe spirituality or other things, kind of got you in touch with different people.
Oh, a lot of people, yeah.
At the same time, you had a desire to kind of integrate these people with health, and that's what we're talking about today, how to integrate this working knowledge of religiosity, spirituality to a degree, the Bible concepts, teachings, or, otherwise, and how to understand that through the lens also of health ministry. Right. So what do you do, or how do you think those two can be integrated?
Okay. Well, there's that quote about Christ's method alone. You meet their needs and then, you mingle with them. That's the first part, right? Mingle, meet their needs. And then once you've won their trust, then you invite them to follow Jesus. And I think sometimes we do it backwards. We try to get them in the church. We try to get them to do the Bible study, but we're not really becoming friends with them. We're not mingling. We're not taking care of what's really going on with them. And so I really think that the health work is anything as simple as being a listening ear, smiling at somebody. You can make somebody's whole brain chemistry change just by taking the time to notice that person. That can totally change their whole, it's amazing, their outlook on the day, right? But then beyond that, becoming a friend of somebody, that's a health ministry. And then going all the way to I don't know, doing a surgery for somebody that could never afford it, you know? That's like a wide spectrum of what I think are ways that we can show Jesus's love, like in action in the health area. But I mean, in between, you have things like cooking a meal for somebody, somebody who's struggling with depression, and teaching them how to just go on a walk with them, you know, help be somebody by their side that helps them to reach their goals. And then, well, what I've experienced when I was in Washington was seeing people who felt that love, and then they wanted more. They wanted to know, like, well, what do you believe? And then that was an opportunity right there. So you can share who Jesus is and what he's done for you.
Walk me through a little bit more of that experience that you had in Washington. What do you guys do, specifically?
Yeah, so we were a team of 2 doctors and like 3 nurses and then 3 health coaches. So I was one of the health coaches. And what we would do is everyone got assigned at least 4 people. And then it was very intense. We didn't just meet the people once a week like a normal Bible study or a Bible worker would do. We were actually in touch with these people on a daily basis for 7 weeks. So every day I was either in the lady's house, I was texting her, I was calling her, I was holding her accountable to the things that she said she wanted to do with her life. So like one of my ladies, she was depressed. Another lady, she was overwhelmed. She had like 4 kids or 6 kids. I don't remember how many she had. You know, very broken backgrounds. A lot of the people we worked with were lower income, like living in, you know, those kinds of situations where they don't have enough. They don't know where their food's going to come from sometimes. But with all of those challenges, we were there and we developed a really strong relationship with them. So we would pray for them and we would help them. And sometimes it wasn't even like cooking a meal. Sometimes it was just folding the laundry. Literally like baskets and baskets of laundry. And that's how we became friends with one of the ladies I worked with.
After you're folding and doing all of this, where was this? I mean, a lot of people will say, like, you know, a lot of churches maybe will listen to this and say, well, you know, just go in there, teach the Bible, get out. But you actually became, you know, kind of like not only a friend, but a serving friend.
Yeah. So she knew, like, for example, this person that I'm mentioning that had all the clothes to fold, she knew that I was there to help her. She knew that if she had a big problem, I'd come, or I'd pray with her over the phone, or I'd listen to her. So I really feel like something that we're missing as people, and maybe not everybody has this gift, right? Some of us do, some of us don't, is just really getting into people's lives, like really taking time to listen, finding out what's really going on with them. Because we can go and give a Bible study, we can go and invite them to church, but do you really know who they are? Do you really know like how they grew up? Do you really understand why they are the way they are? Because honestly, I was assigned the hardest people of everybody. I had the most worst tempered lady, and I had the most sick man of everybody. And the lady who was the bad temper, nobody wanted to be with her. Nobody wanted to go into her house and fold her clothes because she would scream at her kids all the time. And she just had this temper that was hard. How do you love somebody like that? You know, it's hard.
So what do you guys do?
We kept on loving her. We kept on visiting her. Eventually I had to leave because my time was up. Somebody else took over. And then it just kept on. And then that person had to leave and somebody else took over, and just continued being her friend and inviting her to events. And actually she ended up getting baptized. I found out this year she got baptized, and she's actually a health coach now too, to people in her community. And her character has really softened. I can't believe how much it's softened. Like back in the days, you know, on Facebook, she would never call me honey or like, hey sis, or like nothing sweet or endearing. She was very tough, hard-hearted, kind of like hardened. I mean, not hard-hearted, but hardened from her life. But now she's like a lot softer. And I really think that's because she's opened up to the love, you know, and I'm sure it's influencing the way she treats her kids too and her husband.
So you're speaking about health as a whole, you know, and when I hear the story that you're saying, I mean, I think it's great. Like, you know, she got baptized. a lot of the work that you did was maybe on the emotional health side, which is which is a very important component.
It turned out that she needed more emotional health. Like, she needed more emotional support than I thought. Like, I initially thought she wanted to lose weight, and that's why I was there, to help her to lose weight. So I'd go on walks with her. I'd try to help her to cook or, figure out a menu. But most of the time we ended up not doing that. Most of the time it ended up like me listening to her, finding out what was going on with her, praying for her, and then, folding the clothes and leaving. But she also had some other things. Like, for example, one time the doctor came to visit, right? So I had already told the doctor that she was having, she was on caffeine a lot, and then her heart, and she wasn't sleeping very much. And this was a really bad recipe. She could have a heart attack, and what would happen to all these kids? So we were trying to give attention to her physical health. Her husband as well was having problems. And so, that was one way, like bringing a doctor in to assess the situation, or having the nurse come in and check what the medications were, and assess things that I couldn't notice, but they could, because they're medically trained.
Yeah. And I think that that's kind of where I wanted to go, kind of explore a little bit more of like how to bring the doctors. I mean, like probably a health professional that's listening right now and it's like, I already have a busy schedule. And they do, health professionals have a lot of busy schedules. But I guess maybe what you're pointing at is they took time from their schedules and maybe visit these people, and just become friends with them, and also like encourage them in their health journey. You kind of were there for the emotional side and maybe other physical aspects, but they were also there to check on the more professional side of things, which I think is really helpful. How can we do that at maybe a larger scale? Do you think this is reproducible in other parts of, the world, or even here in the United States?
Absolutely, because we have professionals in all our churches, whether they're doctors or not, like primary providers, or they're different levels. Everything we have, we can use it. And I think that's why going door to door is a great way to find out, or doing surveys, or, honestly, I really like the personal touch. That's just me.
Yes, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think that, having both sides, and, we do have health professionals everywhere. And I think, that can really help. Like, you kind of target a community, you go and you help them out with whatever that they need. I think it requires sacrifice.
Yeah, it does. But like, for example, the people that I worked with, it was a pastor and a doctor that were working together. Like, pastors can easily pair up with a doctor, and do a weekly Bible study. You have the doctor who shares the health tips, and then you have the Bible study right after. That's how all these people that I worked with up in Washington, that's how they were ready for me when I arrived, because the doctor had already prepped them, had already taught them, the pastor had already showed them, and they were working together. And you can do a weekly class, and it did require sacrifice, but to see people who are not just like gonna come and leave, because we have so many people get baptized and then they just leave because they don't have friends, because they don't know how to live. And then, the devil attacks us and then just walk out. But I think that's something that you can reproduce. It does take effort, but there's resources too. We have Spirit of Prophecy, we have Ministry of Healing, and then we have actual doctors and pastors who are doing this in different places.
That sounds really encouraging, to a certain degree. Like you said, it requires sacrifice. I believe that. It requires intentionality and,
it does.
Christian maturity at the point that you kind of realize, well, I may have a busy schedule, but maybe I can squeeze in an hour a week as a doctor, or, maybe 2 hours or whatever. And I understand someone's listening right now and it's like, I really don't have time. Well, it is true. It takes time. It takes maybe reorganizing agendas and, doing all of that stuff. And it's not to say that if you don't do it as a health professional, you're not doing God's work, because definitely they're interacting with sick people and they can do it at the hospital. But I think the preventative care, or maybe like working with a specific community, kind of develops bonds and relationships that maybe will not be as relatable, or maybe be able to be developed at a hospital setting where, you may have a lot of patients just passing through, or just having that. So I think that's very encouraging. Tell me a little bit more about what kind of inspired you to do this work of integrating gospel, Bible stuff with health.
When did it start? I don't really know. I guess it's kind of just been taught to me or exemplified to me since I was a kid with my parents and their ministry. But maybe just seeing that there's a lack, because I always would hear like complaining from, the gospel side, the theological side, like that, we're not winning enough souls. Like we're not keeping enough people. Like we have these young people who are leaving, like all these things going on. Right. And then the medical side was like doing their work and happy for what they're doing, but they weren't really reaching hearts anymore, like winning souls like we're supposed to. And I really think, honestly, Spirit of Prophecy has played a big role in my understanding of what medical work is supposed to be like. And the thing is this, I don't know if you've heard this quote before, but it says that like, every member of the church should be a medical missionary. There's those big blanketed statements like everyone should be involved in like literature evangelism, right? In some way, shape, or form. Well, she says that, and there's a reason why we're supposed to be involved in those things in some level, and it's because it affects our life at such a basic, daily need, what you eat, how you live, your mental health, your relationship with God, all those things play a core. And so seeing that Jesus's method was super effective. And are we being effective? That was my burden. And so I think that's why I've wanted to figure out a way, how can I make them together again? Because there was a time, back in the Kellogg time where we were actually doing them together. And then there was another time, there's a guy named Tyndall who graduated from Loma Linda when it was still in medical missionary school. And he was doing evangelism so well that like huge baptisms down in San Bernardino, California, and he didn't just reach the lower class, he was reaching the affluent, and every conference wanted him and his team because they were reaching both the mind and the body, the whole person. And that's what Jesus came to do. He's not just interested in us knowing who he is or the concept and accepting the concept of who he is. He wants us to experience him. Like he came to give us life abundant, but are we experiencing that fully? No. And if you're sick, can you really get stuff in your head? Not too well. So you have to have them together, really. And I think that Jesus' ministry is so complete, so whole, the way God loves us, that we got to learn how to do that if we're going to do his work.
That sounds like a lot.
It does. But you know what I think is that none of us are going to do everything. None of us are going to do everything.
I think that's a good point. I mean, like for me, when you were saying, I was like, man, that's very complete. It sounds very wholesome. And I think that's maybe where we need to aspire to go. But, I think it requires more organization.
Absolutely.
Kind of like understanding where I belong in this team of like, mind and body. Like, some people are really good with mind and emotional health.
Yeah.
Or like teaching,
excellent.
Teaching principles or teaching ideas. Other people are just like, you know what? I am good at just providing physical health support and maybe like teaching people how to go to the gym or how to, do physical exercise. Like, and I mean, like everyone kind of benefits out of different sections of, this wholesome work that you're talking about.
Yeah.
And also I wanted to kind of mention, because you mentioned a couple of times, for those who do not know what Spirit of Prophecy is.
Okay, yeah.
It's a term that is usually used in Adventism to refer to the writings of Ellen White.
Yes.
She was a lady in the 1800s, right? And she was a pioneer of the Adventist Church. And she was very, very prominent. She gives a lot of good counsel and a lot of, great information. So just wanted to kind of mention it out there. Now, as we transition kind of like to the last kind of not half, but like the last section of the podcast, I'm interested to know what are you pursuing now? Like, kind of you went through this program, you kind of got some head knowledge in the Bible college, and you went to Wildwood to kind of like, get some natural homeopathic, remedies and all of that. But, there's also, you interact in Washington with real nurses, and I'm not saying that natural remedies is not real nursing in the sense of like nurturing, but I'm talking about the professional aspect of nursing, right? The drug section, like, or medication, I don't want to kind of denote that it's less important, but what is your plan now that you kind of got in these different experiences? How are you going to integrate it in the future?
Yeah, so right now I'm pursuing becoming a nurse. I'm in my program right now here at Southern, but my whole goal is to become a nurse practitioner so that I can help people to transition into healthier lifestyles, which is going along the same lines, right? Of not just giving them a pill, but also teaching them how to live so that they don't have to have so many pills. Because as much as we think pills are great, they actually also hurt you. And so trying to bring down the damage level, and see if we can reverse things and show the love of God and teach them about Jesus as I go. I mean, maybe I'll work in another country. Maybe I'll just stay here in a community. It's really wherever God leads me. But I've already had amazing experiences in nursing school, going into the psych unit, going into just the regular hospital units, in the ER, like just cool stuff where I see all my training coming together and like helping me to touch people's lives. So I'm excited for the future. I was also, because of my experience with canvassing and my door-to-door love and community stuff, I've been wanting to form a team. So I've been talking to other nurses who also have a passion to reach people for Jesus, and we're formulating something that can be reproducible, something that we can use our skills with, right? As nurses, assessing and helping. And so it's coming together, but not quite yet. So it's a slow process. Got to get through school too, but I want to stay active while I'm going through school. So
Awesome. Well, that's good to hear. Thank you for talking about this topic and kind of sharing some of the experiences. I think that if you guys can form that team and kind of create resources to reproduce it in other contexts, I think that's got to be really, really helpful. And yeah, I mean, like the reality is that that's the only way that it can work. Like, when you reproduce something, like, when you multiply, that's kind of what Jesus did. He started with 12 and then that multiplies into way more people, especially today in the whole breadth of Christianity. But thank you very much, Esther, for, talking with us and being here on the program. As it is our tradition here at Disruptive Adventism, we like to give the final word to our guest. So tell us, what's the final word on integrating health and the gospel?
Maybe just keep in mind that every church is an opportunity to do that. Every church has enough people that you can integrate those things and reach your community. You don't have to go far. You don't have to go to nursing school. You don't have to be a doctor. But if you can just reach somebody who needs it in any level, that will make the difference. And maybe even for eternity, it can change someone's life.
You've been listening to Disruptive Adventism. We hope that today's topic helped you to think and change something about your practices, about your faith, about your Adventism. If you want to subscribe, make sure to go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcast. We'll be there. And make sure to give us a review if you like what you're listening to. If you want to support, make sure to go to patreon.com/Disruptive Adventism. It helps us pay our bills and produce the content that you're listening to. And if you want to socialize, make sure to like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram or on Twitter, and hit us up whenever you need anything. We'll be there to support you. Thank you for listening today. We hope you join us next time. And as always, we invite you to be disruptive.